Now to introduce our fantastic and very large panel here. What a cast, first of all. Let me introduce you, though, to the guy that put it all together, the producer, director, co-writer, and star, Kevin Costner. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
And then this incredible cast that you put together here. I'm just going to introduce you as I go down the row here. It's Abbey Lee. Hi, Abbey.
Hello.
Sienna Miller. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Whoops.
Don't.
Everything's. I'm a club. Yeah.
Sam Worthington. Hi.
Hey.
All right. Michael Rooker.
How's it going?
Very good. Jena Malone. Hi.
Hello.
And Jamie Campbell Bauer.
Hello.
Right there. And now we're going to go to row 2, which is right here. Wasé Chief. Hi.
Hi.
And we have Tatanka Means and Owen Crowshoe.
Hi.
Hi there. Luke Wilson.
Hi, Pete.
Ella Hunt.
Hi, Pete.
Hi. And Isabelle Fuhrman.
Howdy.
Welcome to all of you. You are talking to the world out there, a group of international journalists. And Kevin, let me start with you. I want to ask you about the inspiration for this, which is a 4-part saga as it is. But we're talking to journalists from around the globe here. This is a very American story, American West. Westerns generally are. But it has universal appeal. Talk about how people will relate to it globally, not just in the United States.
Well, I think movies always have that chance to relate. We're not really all that different, maybe not sharing the same language or customs. But if you think about America, it's really not that old in comparison to the rest of the world in a sense. In a sense, I say. And what that really means is we started to get news about America about 400 years ago. It was doing quite nicely without us. And America was settled by Europeans, by people coming from around the world. If they were able to make it across that Atlantic, they started to understand that there was a promise out here, that there was a land so big that it went so far that they could have what they didn't have in Europe, what they just didn't have. It was like I refer to it as the Garden of Eden. And what they didn't realize, there was a people here who had been flourishing for 15,000 years. And these two ideas came into conflict from sea to shining sea, and our story deals with that. But the people that crossed America, make no mistake, came from Europe.
Yeah, it's interesting. What was you are one of the great saviors of the American Western throughout your entire career, going back to Silverado, Wyatt Earp, and then, of course, Dances with Wolves, Open Range, Yellowstone, on and on and on. There's been something throughout your entire career here. But this has to be your most ambitious project yet in terms of this. This is 4 parts, like I said, pretty much 12 hours, and being presented in a way that's unique for theatrical exhibition. So what was your idea here in presenting this story that way?
Well, when I do a story, I don't want to stop till it's finished. And when I look at it, I try to understand what it was, and it was really a journey. It's not a plot movie. And so it was 4. And my idea was not to wait to see if the first one was successful. I believe in telling the story. The only way this is successful, in my mind, is that it's complete. And listen, we're all given crayons in school, and we each make a picture, and it looks different. And there's different directors, and I don't know what my bag is, but I just do it a little differently, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was in Cannes, and I saw the reception this movie got there, with the audiences from around the world. How did that make you feel for the first?
Well, I went armed with my 7 girls, number one, because of the level of contribution that they brought to an American Western. Usually they're not identified with it. And in this instance, not only do our storylines run right through my women, the story's not possible without them. It's so much a better story to show what they have gone through. And so when I went to Cannes, I said, I'm going with the girls. And I wasn't really prepared for what it was. I heard they clap afterwards, that they celebrate directors. But it went on, and there was a moment where I was caught off guard. There was a moment where I tried to shut out the noise. I could see people's hands clapping. I could see their mouths moving, but I couldn't hear them. And so I simply kind of went back in time and kind of thought about the breadcrumbs that led me to this moment. And but I went with my colleagues. I went with my children. And eventually the noise came back, and it was time to say something, and I babbled. I'm not sure what I said, but I was. It's a moment for me, for sure. It's a moment for my, like I say, my colleagues. They all walked that red carpet, stunningly beautiful, and it was my children saw me in a different light.
Well, let's talk to some of them. Let's talk to some of the girls first here. Sienna. Incredible performance here. She's a real powerful character. And, you know, it's true. You don't see in most Westerns the women presented. There was one in the 50s called Westward Ho, the Women, that I thought was pretty strong in that. But it's very rare. How the West Was Won had some great female characters, too. But what was this like for you to play this role?
Well, she's such a survivor. She's so courageous. And I think to tell a story about the kind of inception of America as we know it today that doesn't include women is really disingenuous, you know? And Kevin crafted these incredible characters and follows their contribution not only to the settlement of America, but also their personal internal struggles. And I think every character in this has something going on. Mine is incredibly brave and courageous and resentful, but forward-thinking and compromising her own needs for her daughter. And she's a survivor. You kind of had to be. So I was thrilled. Also, if Kevin Costner calls you and says, will you come do a Western, you run. You run. So I'm very happy to be here.
Or grab a horse.
You grab a horse.
Yeah.
Or a wagon. Or a wagon.
Or a wagon, indeed, yeah. Abbey, you're playing a prostitute in this, who sort of is teamed up with Haze, who's Kevin's character here throughout. What was it like for you to work with Kevin and to work in this kind of genre?
Well, I think I got the beauty of experiencing Kevin not just as a director but as an actor. Most of my scenes are with Kevin. And what I found quite fascinating is that he felt to me like a very different man as a director and an actor. As a director, he's really passionate and he has a lot of energy. He sort of runs around set, or he's on horseback running around set and giving people notes. And he has so much commanding energy and such strong leadership qualities that is really important on a set that size, where there's not just actors and extras, there's cattle and donkeys are kicking off and there's crazy weather happening, and he just has so much energy and he keeps the morale going every day. And as an actor, he's so relaxed and gentle, and rather than feeling like you're doing a scene with someone who's acting, it's just a man in front of you communicating with you. And I found that really just lovely, a really nice way to work.
And Ella is British, so here you are in a very American kind of role there. You're playing a Brit, but and also Isabelle, what were your experiences here in doing this? Because as it goes along, not just in Chapter 1, it gets quite intense.
I mean, I had a glorious time making these films, even with the grit of the characters' experiences. It was a beautiful time. I was so excited to play this woman who, on the face of it, is a bit of a challenge. She can be a bit difficult to love. She is forthright and so protective of her husband, but it comes out of love for her. And like Sienna was saying, ultimately she's a survivor. She kind of has no other choice. And it was just a thrill for me to get to play this kind of role at this stage in my career. And I really didn't imagine that Kevin would cast me as Juliet, and to be seen as her through his eyes is something that I'm going to carry through the rest of my career. It's meant so much to me for him to believe in me as her.
And Diamond, for me, as a character, when I read all of the scripts, I was just so floored as well that Kevin saw that I could carry this character for this period in her life. I mean, this westward journey really shapes the woman that she becomes, and to be able to show through the eyes of a young woman finding her place in the world and absorbing, what this journey of survival really takes, and also finding her own path, really just felt like a challenge, and it felt exciting. And to work with such incredible women that each female character I feel like is so distinctive. They all face their own struggles and make decisions based on fear or love or what they feel like they have to do for those they love. And it just felt like being a part of something greater and bigger. And Kevin just put so much belief and trust in us, and it just was so easy to step onto that set every day and be in that world that he created for us. It really felt like making movies in the most magical way.
One of the key things, like Dances with Wolves, which was, God, I can't believe that was 34 years ago, but Wasé Chief, one of the many indigenous members of the cast here. What was the experience like for you in telling the story here? This is authentic casting, which didn't always happen in Hollywood.
Yeah, it was amazing, especially getting to work with these two awesome Native actors, getting to know all the Native cast, and working with Aurelia, who was our language coach. Kevin made sure that we were going to learn the real White Mountain Apache language, and in order to do the Apache Nation justice, we all wanted to make sure we learned the language correctly and made it sound good. And Aurelia was really good at making sure that we did that. And it was a lot of pressure, making sure that we're representing our people in a good way, and making sure Kevin's happy, because that's a lot of pressure right there.
Kevin, were you happy?
Every day. That we're blessed to be able to do this. I mean, I think all the people here would be lost if they weren't able to act. There's just something in them that are storytellers, and it's not like they don't deal with the real world. But when you see them on the set, they glow, they come alive, they are all on their yellow brick road.
Tatanka and Owen, I have to ask you, you play brothers, but kind of on opposite sides in terms of the opinion of what's happening to them. And what's happening to them is kind of like horrifying to me. They're coming into your land here, the white settlers, and taking over. And so talk about that aspect of the story here and what you both brought to it. Owen?
Yeah, I think that Pionsene, he was originally like a very peaceful guy, and he felt that Apaches should always be together and should be unified. But then as the settlers are starting to come encroach on our land, he has to make the tough decision to be that resistance against the settlers. So he chooses to separate from the original tribe, and I think that like there's a lot of things that went into that choice. He would see, like, he's seen a lot of bad stuff. He's seen the settlers coming in. He's seen Apaches fighting Apaches, and yeah, he had to make the decision to it's not a time of peace right now. We have to act. We have to go. And yeah, playing the role of Pionsene, I think that it opens up a different side of me that I don't usually express in my everyday life. But once I put I feel that like just putting the headband on, I'll be transformed into Pionsene again, and he's a powerful guy.
Yeah, indeed. Tatanka, can you talk about, Wasé mentioned the White Mountain Apache, a dialect that you had to learn. How difficult was that?
It was super difficult. I think, because we're native actors, we get cast and we play different tribes, and I think a lot of people think that we can just speak whatever language that they cast us as. And I think I've spoken over 20 different tribal languages. We're not Apache, but we're enrolled tribal members. And I'm grateful to Kevin for casting us, because I think a lot of our roles have been taken by, people that claim some of our indigenous, blood or ancestry. and we lose important roles like that help us in our careers. So to to have this blessing to go in there and portray the Apache people and to work with them one-on-one, with Aurelia and the dialect coaches, it was important to us because we're Native, and when we see our people on screen being represented, we want that authenticity. We want to hear our language spoken correctly and not butchered. It brings pride to us, and not only to the Apache people, but to all indigenous Native people, in North America, to see your language and hear it on the big screen. That brings pride in us. Like when I heard Dances with Wolves and they were speaking the Lakota language fluently to each other, having conversations, that brings pride inside of you. It makes you want to learn it. It makes you want to keep that going because it's important, to our people. And we tried hard, and I think we pulled it off, and I was really happy with everybody's hard work, and that's what Kevin asked for in the beginning was to work hard and to be ready and be prepared, and we were.
Yeah, it's great to give the opportunity, Kevin. Gone are the days of Rock Hudson as Taza, son of Cochise, and the kind of casting that Hollywood did, and you were a leader in this. It's important to you. And to tell your story authentically, right?
Yeah, it didn't seem like a big move to me. It just seems like an authentic one, and that's where I think, it just, I don't really take too much credit for that. It seems obvious, and it makes for a better movie, and you can't have the Western story unless you have the First People's story. We threw their way of life into chaos, and they never recovered in their own way. And I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware of the people that came across this country and the resourcefulness that it required to carve out a life. It just threw these two cultures into chaos, and it was a one-sided fight. It wasn't fair, and I'm not looking to reinvent history or set the record straight, but I can't make a movie on the American West unless the indigenous are involved.
Now, let me ask you guys here, because the Civil War is a part of this, too. It's not about the Civil War, really, like a Civil War movie at all, but it takes place during those years and following it and everything. And Sam, you're a very conflicted man in this. It's a very complex kind of character, in the Civil War here that you go off and fight. Can you talk about playing this character?
I think that's the thing. I think the character doesn't really understand the frontier wars. I think the Civil War makes perfect sense to him. Maybe he'd much rather be fighting that,
Yeah. What was it like for you to work in this film?
It's easy because you're working along the side of great actors like Sienna, Danny Huston, and the amazing Michael Rooker.
It's great. Yeah, Michael Rooker right there next to you. Michael, what about you and your character? And you've been in a lot of movies. Was this a distinctive role for you, though?
Everything about this movie has been distinctive. Having the first conversation with Kevin on the phone and him asking me and wanting me in the movie was just amazing. We had worked together way back in JFK, and it was what a pleasure to see his face again. And to be on set, was fantastic. Such a beautiful director, very caring and understanding, and I love the way he will give you direction. The direction is vital, and when you're talking before the scene, setting it up really gets to me, and so I'm very fortunate to be here. I posted just recently, it's finally, cinema is back. So thank you, Kevin. I mean, unbelievable stuff.
That is the amen to that. That's for sure. And it's hopeful now. We're seeing people go back to movies again. It's a communal experience, and seeing movies like this. This is a widescreen movie, beautifully done. Jena and Jamie, I want you to talk about being on those incredible locations. I kept thinking John Ford lives again, Utah there, that whole landscape. Jena, what was it like working in this kind of environment?
I mean, it's a gift. It's a gift as an actor, you know. I mean, we can, you know, put us in a room, we can imagine it's an elevator, you know, put us in Lancaster and we'll imagine it's wherever. But we're atmospheric creatures, you know. You can't help but be influenced by the surroundings that you're in, and it does change how you oscillate, how you make decisions, and, you know, getting to shoot in such a beautiful environment, but not just a beautiful environment. Everyone was in it together. 2 hours to set, just to the base camp, 45 minutes to set. Locations and sets that were built that were not there 3 months ago. This was such a beautiful, for me, like a reclamation of getting to really experience that energy of optimism and hope and curiosity, no matter the stakes, no matter the terrain. And I feel like Kevin gifted us this opportunity of the terrain becoming part of another character. You know, it was omnipresent in all of our performances, which really, I think as an actor, is like you can't help but say yes, and it really elevates it. You know.
Jamie, you kept nodding your head yes through her entire answer.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent time out in Moab prior to shooting this, actually at one of the base camp locations for the film, and I love it out there. Like, it doesn't look like anything I've ever seen before. It looks like Mars, and you know, like Jena said, you know, to have that as a character and to be able to capture that on screen, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this film, you know. We love all those old westerns, but there was a time, and technology has grown so much. So to be able to see that now, just the way that it looks on this screen, it's beautiful. And again, you know, just to kind of riff off what Jena said, you know, it elevates the performance. We love to play, so put us in that environment, and we're going to have a good time.
Exactly. And Luke, you look like you had a great time being elected leader of your wagon train there. I mean, that's a big job.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to play the captain of the wagon train, but I mean, any kind of ideas about leadership, you know, as soon as you come across something like the idea of getting a bad map, is the leader that kind of changes things and makes you think about how difficult the job is. But yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable to film this because, you know, Kevin at one point asked me how my experience was on the movie, and I said it reminded me a lot of, you know, playing sports, to where when action got called on a scene, you know, these scenes we were doing where it was all, you know, livestock actors, you know, background actors, wagons. I mean, it was like a fuse being lit, where, you know, action might be called, but there was not going to be cut until things had stopped moving. It was kind of like the ocean, but it was a great experience.
Did it make you want to live in those times?
It certainly gave me more respect than I already had, which I had a good deal of for the people that did live in those times. But, you know, I'm from Texas, and whenever I've, you know, flown back and forth between Texas and California, I always kind of look out the window and think, okay, how did people make it across there? If I got put down right there, could I make it out on my own? And so to get to be at one of those spots that I'd looked at from a plane was a great experience.
Very cool. Now we have questions from the audience here, so I'm just going to ask them. Lupe Haas from Cinemovie. For each of the cast, did playing these characters give you a new perspective on what it was like for people who migrated to the West despite knowing the dangers, and that there's people today who are still taking risks for a better life? Anybody want to take that? Sienna, anybody?
Oh, Pete.
You're staring at me.
Oh, thank you. Good morning.
No pressure.
Yeah. No, I think, I don't think anyone anticipated quite how dangerous it would be. I don't think they really knew what they were getting into. And obviously, once you set out on that journey and you finally arrive, months and months of traveling with children and livestock, and there's no turning back. And I think it was unforgiving terrain, as dry and hot. And I have immense respect for anybody who manages to do that. And yeah, that's sort of it.
And also being a woman at that time. I mean, I was playing a character who was essentially forced into prostitution, because if you weren't married to a man, in other words, if you weren't owned by a man, then you had no rights, you had no freedom, you had no opportunity to be independent, to have dreams. And so I was playing this character who was bursting with desire and vigor and passion, and she was not in a time where you were even allowed that. That was not a freedom that women were given. So to be able to play this character where like your dreams are crushed, even physically, even being in a corset where you like can't breathe or move properly, it creates this feeling of like you're entrapment and frustrated. And so I really feel for women of that time. There must have been so many women that felt like that, just trapped.
I heard even during production the weather changed quite a lot, and so you were actually experiencing in a way what people went through weather-wise there. This was not a walk in the park.
I've been joking about this, that I think I got a glimpse into wind craziness. At the beginning of shooting movie 2, the first few days we had very intense kind of sandstormy weather, and we were working on very emotional material, and I'd get inside at the end of the day and feel like my brain was like clattering around in my skull. Like I felt like I was going crazy, and it really was a thing. People on the Oregon Trail went wind crazy. But what you were speaking about just a second ago about having compassion for these people making these journeys, Isabelle and I both read the diaries of women on the Oregon Trail. They are out there to read. They're on Google. They're amazing. And just these journeys that these people were embarking upon and the things that women had to deal with. I mean, oftentimes women were giving birth on the trail. They were dealing with small children getting lost. They were having to feed their families. And often, like Abbey was saying, they weren't making these journeys with any autonomy. They were making these journeys because their husbands were traveling on a dream.
Yeah. The husbands were calling the shots. Yeah.
Well, it's like we like to think, and Kevin's spoken about this a lot, that it was a simpler time, but the decisions people were making on a day-to-day basis were, even just something as simple as where you're going to find water next and whether or not you're going the right direction, or if the person that is telling you you're going the wrong way is lying to you or not. I mean, it really was a time where every single decision you made, you didn't know if it was going to affect everyone around you. And that you start to see in movie 1, obviously, but it continues on throughout the saga.
Amazing. Okay, now, Cara O'Doherty. Kevin, this story has been with you for so many years, I think since when, 1988 or whenever it started in your mind. Has it changed much from the early days of inception to what we see in Chapter 1?
1988 was a single movie, and when I wasn't able to make that one, I decided I would make 4 more. And so, the logic of that is purely American, I think. And what I did essentially was just re-engineer that first story, which is almost the way a lot of Westerns are. It starts with a town, always a town, and we forget the people that were there first, that when a stake went in the ground, and the first image that we have in Horizon is a stake going in the ground, and out come the ants. And it was a metaphor, again, for the chaos that we started. And I think I had a chance to kind of, wait a second, let's talk about how Denver started, how Tucson started, how San Francisco, St. Louis, you go right down the way. We displaced people. And so I really wanted to start at the beginning. And I took the characters in that original story and simply were able to re-engineer 8 or 9 of them to that. So there's a 5th story. Don't get me going. There's a 5th story that maybe someday I'll make, but it led me to a greater story. It led me to a better adventure. I feel like everything they're talking about is real. The West is not a land in Disneyland. It was real, and there were life and death decisions, and it wasn't over the course of a movie. It was over a course of 200 years. Luke's character is arbitrating whether they're going to hang somebody. Just a simple man who's elected. And I try to touch on these things. A woman bathing just because she had the desire to be clean. A woman running for her life that will hide under a building for 3 nights straight. I'm going to get to the gunfight, I promise. But I love what happens in between. And I think that's why all these actors came to this project, because they read what was in between. Yeah. You know, and to see Jamie Bauer walk me up a hill. We all understand being bullied, and he is electric in his approach to that scene, walking up the hill. We haven't seen something like that in a long time, and I remember working so hard on the writing, and then to see Jamie come and blow air into that, just like they all did. You were amazing in that scene, man.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And we should mention that the first part opens this week, June 28th here, and then August 16th is Chapter 2, and you have just begun filming Chapter 3.
Right.
Yeah. So it is a continuing saga, like we mentioned. Francisco Canjiano from Cine Express, Puerto Rico. Congratulations on your new film, Mr. Costner. You can call him Kevin. Throughout your impressive career, you've entertained us with various projects within the Western genre. I'm genuinely interested in learning what are some of your all-time personal favorite Western films.
There's about 3, but I'll just play one. I think Liberty Valance. It's based on writing, so Liberty Valance I love quite a bit, and I think How the West Was Won fired my imagination. But I was 7 years old, and that really is the essence of movies, isn't it? Really, that we, for some reason, go and watch these things in the dark. We have all done it. We were taken there as children. It's the one place that our parents allow us to go by ourselves, because for some reason the theater was considered safe. It's where we learned how to maybe kiss. That's how you do it. We know the difference between being honorable, and we see great heroism. We see a level of cowardice. We see a level of love and compassion. For as phony as movies are, there's really a lot to learn from them. We kind of learn who we want to be and who we don't want to be.
Okay, so Rachel Leishman, the Mary Sue. For Kevin, how does your acting background help you in the writing process from the writing process to directing the movie? So being an actor first and then going into writing, directing, how did that help you?
It just, I don't know how it helps me. I mean, I went to Groundlings to understand building of character and things like that. I mean, I don't want to bore everybody with the process, but I know one thing. I can't get actors unless I have great parts. And actors have a vanity. They want to live forever. And there's only one way you do that. You're in a movie that can hold up that idea. Movies can live forever, and the actors that came to Horizon will be a part of this forever in their life. The people that love them the most and the longest will be able to look at them at this point in their careers, and they're going to marvel at what they see. And there's 4 of them. And the second one is just gets harder than the first. It doesn't get any easier for the people going west. It doesn't magically somehow start running downhill. It gets harder. You can count on it.
Christiana Alievi from 7 Corriere della Sera. You chose, Kevin, you chose Sienna Miller to portray a woman as real as possible, even if from the Civil War period. What did you see in her?
Well, I saw one of our great leading ladies, and there are other women sitting on this stage that can carry movies and will, but Sienna was our leader. She's luminous. She has that miracle of getting prettier the dirtier she looks, and she took everything I had, and all of them did. I'll just give you one example. Dances with Wolves took 106 days to make. Wyatt Earp took about 113. We did this movie in 52 days, and these actors never shrunk. They have great instruments. They're very specific people. Moments out there weren't perfect for them, but they never wilted. And it started with Sienna, how she conducted herself. and every one of them, just I'll never forget them. We're linked now forever in this movie, and they showed up when it was 110 degrees. They showed up when it was hardest. Who knows what was happening in our own personal lives, because we are human beings. We do portray other people, but our lives are still going on. And every one of them gave me everything. And what more can you ask for? And it started with Sienna, and when I started building out, I worked with actors that I had worked with and actors that I'd never met that have now changed me and marked me, and actors that I will want to keep working with. It was just, you start with somebody, and she was our leader.
Nice. Okay, Vincent Schilling of Native Viewpoint. As a Mohawk critic, it is always great to see indigenous representation in a movie. This question is for Kevin and Tatanka Means. What is the importance of Native representation in Horizon, and how did you verify accuracy in this representation within this film?
It's very important, I mean, to be able to see yourself on screen. Like I mentioned, for the young people and for our history and during this time, it's important because we're an important part of history. And to see us included in the story and represented in that way, they had Apache people on set that were there to, to contribute. And I think it turned out great.
There's not much difference between people. The same things make us laugh. They make us cry. We weep for what we've lost. We yearn for what we like. If you invest in behavior, it doesn't matter what century or decade you choose to make a movie. You can find yourself, and that's an obligation of a movie, that you are able to look up there and recognize yourself.
Yeah. For the cast, can you talk about working with the... I'm glad they're asking this, doesn't have a name, but can you talk about working with the different artists and crafts teams, production design, set designers, makeup, hair, costume, cinematographer, who all collaborated to create an immersive world and to add all the physical elements that build each character? Very important to your behind the camera crew here.
Everybody here has worked on the stage, and they know what's minimal about what's on a stage. And they come to work, and they see an aquarium with castles and marbles and everything. You don't have to make up anything. And when I think of my cinematographer, Jimmy Murrow, and Derek Hill, who did our sets, and Lisa Lovas, that did our costumes, they were handing us our performances. We are dependent on them. It's a family. I mean, you can kind of say it. It's a bit of a cliche, but there's a lot of people that, actors are out in front, and we get so much credit. But we all know in our hearts how many people stand behind us and wait for us to hit our marks and to find that magic and for the music to play. I mean, this is. I'm so lucky to get to have been in the movies in my life. I didn't know what was going to happen in my life, and I think if you asked everyone up here, there's a journey that they had, and they all were honest with themselves, and it allowed us to meet. We have this intersection in our life based on your passions, based on your discipline, how you conducted your careers, and we found a way to meet and to interact. And I love that. And the pursuit of yourself is the only way that something like this happens.
Okay, this is...
I realize I didn't answer that question.
Well, it came close enough. It was good. It was about everybody that worked on this film that is not sitting here.
Well, you know what? Let me say something real quick here. It's almost a 1/4 inch of wool that we're wearing, my friend. It was the most god-awful feeling. And then the wardrobe people are like, would you like period underwear as well? They wore long underwear. I'm like, no, it's okay. Thank you very much. Amazing. It's just amazing. It really sets the mood and sometimes you're all buttoned up and you're on horseback and you end up, at the end of the day, oh man, now I kind of really know how these people felt, and they were in those saddles all day long sometimes, and so our craft people were above and beyond. They were the greatest, the greatest. Not just the wardrobe, but the sets and the building of your house, Sienna, is just fantastic. And it is like you go into this aquarium, everything is there already. So now all we have to do is like live up to it a little bit,
You'd open drawers on the set and there'd be props that were authentic in the event that you wanted to open a drawer and look. Not that would ever be seen.
Mm-hmm.
The sheets on the bed were original sheets that had been found from antique markets. Lisa Lavas, the costume designer, would really construct color to match mood and temperature, and full underwear that was original, that no one again is ever going to see.
Period stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was just so thoughtful, and yeah.
And a huge shout out to the animal wranglers as well. I had a trainer, a woman named Anne, who was my horse trainer, who spent a week with me, and she was so thorough and so patient and so lovely to be around. And she didn't just teach me how to ride the horse, she taught me how to communicate with the horse, everything from where my eyes went to the muscles in my calves to she just taught me that a horse breathes with you when you're with the horse, and that it wasn't just about sitting on the horse. I just found all the men and women that were around the animals, I just loved being around them. When I wasn't in a scene and I had to sit about, I would just go and find a horse.
Isn't that great, though, right? The horses were suited for the individual. So, and they weren't trying to teach me how to ride the horse. They were trying to teach the horse how to deal with me. Honestly, every horse is different. One day you get one horse and, oh, my God, I can't deal with this guy. Or, he can't deal with you, pretty much. So that's what I've noticed.
We're all going to... This is my gypsy family too. We're all going to be somewhere else and making another movie somewhere else, and it might be in a city. We might be doing great scenes in elevators and in alleys. But one thing that we all got a chance is to go west one time in our careers, and I, you make these westerns, and I'd just be remiss if I didn't say I can't emphasize this enough, even though as we tell this story, we don't get as far into the Native American stories as I would like to get. I don't pretend that I'm Native American, but never forget that the Native Americans became inconveniences. How did that happen in their own country? They had to run for their lives. They had to protect their way of life, their religion, their children. And it can't ever be minimized. Our fingerprints are all over this. We don't have to be embarrassed. We don't have to be ashamed. But we have to recognize the beauty of that culture, of people that were living in a level of equilibrium and harmony before we put that first stake in the ground. And that will always be our story.
I have only time for a couple more questions, but one is from Elisa Lee, Hole Us Out. This film is very powerful, and each story leaves a lasting impression. So what was the process for seamlessly connecting all these stories in the movie, which can't be easy to weave them in and out?
Yeah, it was a process. I don't know how I go about it. It's like I just know when it's there. And I don't come into the movie till the first hour. People wonder about that. I don't wonder about that at all, because I think the people that I'm watching are so interesting, so commanding. This story will let you in when you close your eyes, and when it gets dark, you open them, and you'll go west with us, and you'll see to the extent as much honest behavior, as much courage, as much resourcefulness as it took. And what you will see is world-class actors embracing these roles, disappearing, and it just I don't know. I'm so happy this happened. It's been a long journey for me, and I'm grateful that it's happened, and it's not our movie anymore. It's your movie. And it's the greatest thing about movies is you get to revisit them. And the movies that move us the most, every time we do, we see something different. And you'll see that because the work was so specific.
Yeah. Okay, this one says, final question. I don't know if that's Johan Lindqvist writing that or our producers here. But for Kevin from Johan Lindqvist, being an actor, writer, director, but also an artist and songwriter, what are your thoughts on the connections and differences between music and movies? Is it only different ways of telling a good story, and do you find inspiration that can be useful going from one thing to another?
They just work together, and it's magic how they all somehow come together, and you can tell when it's not working, which is interesting. Music is so specific, but when it comes to film, it either sticks or it doesn't. Yeah. It either enhances or it doesn't. We were lucky. We went to Scotland, and a 92-piece orchestra backed up these performances. Again, this whole movie-making thing is there's people we're never, ever going to meet, and we're never, ever going to meet the audience that pays to go sit in that dark. This is experience that we all have in common around the world. But what you're going to see when you do it is I hope, magic. It was magic for me. It's a movie I wish somebody made for me. But now it exists, and I'm grateful.
And still in production, but everyone can see Chapter 1 in theaters this Friday, June 28th. Thanks to the press who joined us from around the world today. Thanks to all of you for joining us here. And it says wave to the camera for goodbye. So there we go.